Man.
The topic's always about Pokemon versus Digimon. I've even done it myself before. But looking at these games, especially what we have right now and what's coming, it's quite interesting to see that they could actually mutually benefit. The amount of ruckus Cyber Sleuth made back in 2015 was insane. I mean, it's because of us as a community that the game actually came to the West and they began taking the Digimon IP from a game perspective serious worldwide. From there, their seriousness shows with Next Order from a content perspective. Despite what you feel about the game, they chose to give us voice acting, showing some sort of commitment to the Western audience. Survive is the next entry for this new generation of Digimon games, and if we count Cyber Sleuth, Hacker's Memory, Next Order, and lastly Digimon Survive, besides the two that are in the same universe, the same energy they had back in the day is alive.
Variety.
Pokemon though? They definitely keep the same energy, but it's like when you got the perfect password but you constantly have to change it because you're forced to. What do? Me? I go like bacon cheese 1, and I go cheese bacon 1. And I'm like, 1 bacon cheese. Until I gotta come up with something new because I've exhausted all my options. Pokémon Legends Arceus. Now buckle up, because I'm about to make some of you a little mad, but hear me out.
I enjoyed Pokemon Sword and Shield.
For what it was. I don't want to get too into this, but ultimately there's two things. One, I am a Pokemon shill. 90% of the time you say Pokemon, I just simply buy. And two, I understand the complications of game development. I acknowledge the constraints Game Freak, a small team, is put under, and I equate that into my entire being, thus granting me the superpower to be able to find enjoyment in mediocrity when it comes to the Pokemon franchise. This is by no means a good thing, because I hear you. If we don't complain, the chances of change are 0. But how did I start this video? I know this full well, because we as a community voiced our passion for Digimon and affected Bandai Namco's plans, right? We got the job done. But this is where we take a step back and expand. I would honestly love more competition. I enjoyed Pokemon Sword and Shield for the small good it did. You may be asking, what is that good? Well, it's their new concepts. Wild areas, the raids, and streamlining the competitive training grind. At the end of the day, I'm a competitive battler. But it's like, they tend to present good ideas, but fail to execute them fully. It's like sometimes I fail to realize how good the old games actually were. It's these new concepts that they introduce that seem to push us farther away from what drew us into the games initially. But it's funny, because you know what Digimon has been doing perfectly? Everything Pokemon used to do right. If you simply copied everything Digimon did right and pasted them onto a Pokemon game, you have a very good game in your hands. And I'm just talking like, forget the specifics. Let's just simply take Digimon's partner bond building in the World Series, Digimon's difficulty in the World or Story Series. Hell, let's just grab the ability to change the difficulty setting in Cyber Sleuth. And lastly, Digimon's deep, engaging, and fulfilling stories they present. I will say for the last point, I don't even think it needs to be a deep story, just simplistically engaging as they once were. And am I wrong? Like, you could literally keep the same exact format Pokemon games have and just implement those concepts correctly, aka how they used to, and we have greatness. They always move a few steps forward and 10 strides back. The Galar region, minus the wild areas, bro. I'm trying to think of like the worst word I could use right now. The town areas, bro. The 7th gym. Bro, what was going on? Why are they so basic, so linear? They look big and good, but they're just simply not. Sword and Shield sold very well, purely off the Nintendo Switch and better graphics versus what we're used to. The places were made large scale, I'm telling you, simply for trailer and showing off purposes. They are so dead, linear, and lifeless. Like I said, it's like they spent all their time just trying to create the wild areas. But let's really think about this for a second. There is a clear-cut reason that this has become a problem. Their yearly cadence of game releases leaves very minimal time for Game Freak to work and learn. They must plan this out in a way that they can meet deadlines. And let me just say it, they have to cut corners. Cyber Sleuth is a semi-culprit of the bland/lifeless areas, but the engaging story and gameplay makes up for it, while Sword and Shield has neither. Sword and Shield also might just be the easiest game in the series. Bro, I tried to sabotage myself, but I guess I didn't try hard enough because it was still so easy. Someone needs to explain to me why more people will enjoy Digimon Survive, a 2D, basically visual novel experience, versus the $1 million franchise and money that was spent to create Sword and Shield. You know what a potential culprit is? Competition.
Like, who is gonna pressure Pokemon? Not a damn soul.
I would like to imagine a world where if Pokemon falls short, fans will see it clearly and go a different route because they have the option. But it's hard to talk about this topic, man, because at the end of the day, the biggest culprit is money, right? Dropping a game yearly that can be accompanied by merchandise, and every other year or something like that is accompanied by a brand new Pokemon TV series season. Like, we're talking about billions here. Big bucks. With the scale of game development constantly increasing and Nintendo hardware that houses Pokemon games being way closer to the current gen competition than it ever has been, something has to change. And low-key, we're actually seeing it right now. In order to give Game Freak a pinch of extra time, they finally outsourced something. I mean, we see with the wild areas, the expansions show improvements with Pokemon following you, basically proving that extra time means better outcomes. I literally see wild areas as a tech demo after they executed Pokémon Legends Arceus development began. I did say a pinch of extra time, didn't I? Oh my goodness. And on the other hand, while I personally am fine with the chibi approach for the Diamond and Pearl remakes, the mixed feedback is potentially the exact reason they've never outsourced before. I don't really know though, I'm not here to assume too much. But if we're talking about change, again, Digimon is a great example. Each different Digimon game style is handled by a different studio to allow for one, ample time to create and craft a quality game from start to finish. Not introduce something cool so you can bullshit the other parts. And two, money rules the world at the end of the day, but with this approach, it still allows for constant releases, so money can constantly be generated.
Man.
I don't know if you've caught on, but the Digimon Survive situation is another potential example of why the Pokémon Company hasn't necessarily outsourced before. I have a whole video detailing the troubling development of that game, so check that out if you're interested. But to sum it up, Survive is a new style of game, and they leverage a studio that has never shipped a multi-platform worldwide release game before, leading to the lack of updates and multiple delays the game has received. But remember, they finally outsourced an entire game away from Game Freak, which provided them with extra time to really get creative. I also think 2020 only having DLC for Sword and Shield was also big, right? You definitely didn't need a full team to make that, so I'm sure Arceus, even if it was just a pre-production stage, was started in the meantime. Plus, like I said, Wild Areas felt like a tech demo, meaning so they probably had plans for an open world Pokemon for a minute now, but used Sword and Shield as the beginning to test it out. But what do I know? Unlike Digimon, it's like Pokemon has been throwing in features to again make up for cut corners in order to please us. Something that began with the 3DS are those pesky 3D models. Before, Pokemon development was so straightforward. Think about it, the 2D top-down view allows for so much creativity and freedom due to the lower effort it takes to develop. Why else is Black and White series the last truly memorable Pokemon game? You tell me. Ever since then, the areas and the stories deteriorated. But, and this is my last point, we always see improvements as they make more titles for said hardware. And in my opinion, Pokémon Legends Arceus is the answer. With the brand new slate, fully open world, some of the problems we saw in the Galar region are already almost non-existent. Yes, new problems will now be introduced, but at least we can see what they do with this new approach. The lore the title of this game alone presents gives me a positive feeling that the story will be interesting, which is an aspect we haven't seen done well in a Pokemon game for a while. I think Sun and Moon, while had a deep story, wasn't the best at the end of the day. On the other hand, Digimon is perfectly fine. I'm mostly interested in seeing what the new story game looks like, being built from the ground up for a PS4 versus the PS Vita that the way Next Order and Sabertooth were. But the fact that Survive 100% needs to drop first, and they've been working on a new story game since potentially like 2016 or 2017, I am not worried in the slightest. All in all, I feel like this video was mainly a rant / me preaching, but man, this is essentially my thoughts on the new Pokemon games and where the future lies. In my opinion, Digimon over time has a real chance of putting some type of pressure on Pokemon. Think about it, they got all the bells and whistles Pokemon does: merchandise, anime, card game, mobile games, you name it. All that's left is to define themselves by putting out more industry-shaking content, and the video games are the key in my personal opinion. And if they can pull that off, I could see the Pokemon Company beginning to move a bit smarter. They already are, so that's good news, but will they keep that up? Only time will tell. Other than that, that's all I gotta say, boys. Appreciate y'all for watching, listening, sticking through it. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and that's all I gotta say, so I will see you all in the next one. Peace.